Hello, I'm Tim, and welcome back to Boheim Baseball, where today we're going to be going over kind of the off-season in review, really catching up on the off-season. There's been a lot of catching deals that have gone down, and really get into what's going on this off-season, because really there's been a lot going on, a lot that teams are going to look a lot different after the off-season, especially looking over at the NL East. There's been a ton of big deals signed over in the NL East. Particularly, there's a big catching deal that went down. But before we get to that, we're going to start over just the beginning of the offseason, going down kind of in sequence, what deals have happened. Things are going to get really exciting once winter meetings hit. There's a ton of big deals going into winter meetings, and just kind of see how these teams are rounding up at this point, kind of halfway through the offseason. Lots of stuff's already happened. There's probably going to be some great stuff. Just see how these teams are preparing their opening day rosters to compete in the 2023 season. So, first deal of the offseason, Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz came through, signed a big deal with the Mets. Team he was already with, you won't see giant roster changes here. But Edwin Diaz is kind of a big deal. If you look through it, he got some votes for Cy Young. No first place votes, but I think he got some third place votes for Cy Young. He's been having some great seasons, closing out games for the Mets. So, there's what you got to say is when he goes in and signs that deal, there's going to be trumpets for the Mets for the next few seasons. It's going to be exciting. And as we'll see, this is only one of the first big deals that the Mets have gone in and signed this offseason. They're throwing a lot of money on the table. The Mets are showing they really want to compete. They're outspending the Yankees right now, and that doesn't really happen very often. The Mets outspending the Yankees, like whose city is New York anyways at that point. So with Edwin Diaz off the board, Mets go in, pick him up. They want to keep him. The next deal that goes through is Tyler Anderson signing a deal with the Angels. He signed a one-year deal with the Dodgers last season, had an amazing career year, and the Angels are having to bet on that he can keep it up. That one-year resurgence where he came through, had the best changeup he's ever had. If Tyler Anderson can keep it going, they signed him for 3 years, $39 million, so just over $10 million a year. But because the Dodgers gave Tyler Anderson a qualifying offer, they're also having to sacrifice a draft pick. And bet that draft pick that Tyler Anderson is going to be able to keep up that dominant pitching performance that he showed he is capable with as he was playing with the Dodgers. So he'll be a guy to watch going into 2023, seeing if he can keep up what he was able to do with the Dodgers. So after Tyler Anderson, the next big signing, and again, this isn't one just like we were going with Edwin Diaz. It doesn't really change up roster moves a whole lot. It's just team going out, bringing the guy back that they really like, and it's Anthony Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo came back, signed a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Yankees. And last season, he batted pretty well with the Yankees, but almost a career for him. It was pretty great, and really, the Yankees let him go. There's not too many other great options to replace him with. They don't have a super giant first base prospect coming up in-house. If you go out on the free agent market, best guy there, Abreu. Jose Abreu. He's on the market, but he's getting a little older. I think he's 36. So, you're getting a little older of a guy. Anthony Rizzo is really one of the better guys on the market, especially if you wanted a left-handed bat, because Jose Abreu is right-handed, I believe. So really, if you want a big left-handed first baseman, he's going to put up numbers. It's Anthony Rizzo. Went out, signed him pretty quick. I was expecting to see some bigger offers from other teams, but the Yankees go in, get their guy right off the bat, and now they just had to really focus in on trying to get Aaron Judge back, which, what happens with Judge? It's coming up pretty soon as well. The next big thing is one that I don't know. I personally wasn't expecting. I think most of the baseball world wasn't expecting, but it happened. The Blue Jays traded Teoscar Hernandez to the Mariners. Teoscar's been a big part of the Blue Jays lineup. He's kind of been their Jose Bastilla of the past few years. So getting Teoscar out of there really shakes up the dynamics of Toronto's offense and outfield. That kind of change of image, that kind of change of the team is kind of what Toronto's looking for. They're trying to build a team that can compete in that super competitive AL East. And I guess the first step for them was trading Teoscar, but it also opens up the spot where it's not like they had amazing outfield depth. They just non-tendered Ramal Tapia, Bradley Zimmer, like Jackie Bradley Jr. They just got rid of all those guys. And they need outfield still, and they just traded away kind of their big producing outfielder. So they're going to be looking for more outfielders, kind of looking to trade Teoscar away, build up in some other places. And they did sign an outfielder a little later on in the offseason, and we'll get to that in a bit. But it was kind of a surprising news. So a Blue Jays team that's looking to kind of change direction. And Teoscar's gone. They brought in Eric Swanson and Adam Maka from the Mariners. So they got some pitching. They've been looking for pitching help. Jose Barrios and Kikuchi really didn't pitch up to the standards the Blue Jays were hoping for him. And with Hyun-Jin Ryu still going to be injured for most of the 2023 season, they really needed some pitching help. So getting some pictures over from the Mariners will really help them. But it'll be interesting to see how Toronto looks moving forward now that they're really making moves that are surprising to really shake up their team dynamic to really be competitive next season. Next trade, which is a trade, it wasn't a signing, but next trade on the block is Angels got Gio. They traded for the Twins and got Gio to play utility for him. Wasn't a really no-brainer move for the Angels. They traded away some pitching for him, and Angels are not necessarily in a spot where they should be trading away pitching. They've been trying to get their pitching up to par for the past few seasons. Maybe these guys just weren't working for them, but it's interesting because they just signed a pitcher. They went out, signed Tyler Anderson, and they just traded away some pitching. So I don't completely understand where they're going there, especially with the next deal that the Angels did. But nevertheless, they wanted Gio there. He's versatile. He can play all around the infield. They don't know how healthy Anthony Rendon's going to be when he comes back, so it's safety there. They really struggle with Rendon out. So if Rendon comes back, when he comes back, if he's healthy, if he's able to play every game, if he can stay healthy, it's just security. They really help the Angels once Rendon, if he comes back, how he's doing. So some security there, because really the Angels kind of fell apart once Rendon was out of the lineup. That's really kind of one of the turning points where they started out hot. And then, Rendon was out, and, things didn't go well for the Angels after that. But the Twins, while trading away Gio, they made room for Jose Miranda in their lineup. He was a rookie. They liked what they saw. He played pretty well. And, Jose Miranda writes, he's kind of a legend. So I'm excited to see what Jose Miranda will be able to do now that he's got, Twins just gave him the rights at third base over there. So it should be interesting to see how things go. And next will be the Angels' second deal where they traded away more pitching. They traded away Jason Junk and Elvis Peguero. And I don't know what they were doing here. Elvis Peguero, I really like what I saw out of him. He didn't perform the greatest, but I really liked Elvis Peguero's stuff. And they just traded him away. Traded him to Milwaukee for Hunter Renfroe. So that, they needed another outfielder. Joe Adele has continued to struggle at the major league level. They traded away Brandon Marsh as well, so they need more outfield. Mike Trout's good, but he can't play all three outfield positions. So, it's Hunter Renfroe's a pretty good addition. Saw a lot of people talking about how Hunter Renfroe's the Mike Trout lookalike, and now they have them both in the same outfield. So that should be pretty fun to see them together out there. But Brewers get Elvis, and if there were a replacement for Josh Hader, it just might be Elvis. I mean, he's not that dominant right now, but I think Elvis is going to have some great seasons ahead. And I was kind of hoping to see him as an Angel, but Milwaukee, you got a great player out of that. So Milwaukee, I don't know what Milwaukee's going to do in their outfield. It should be interesting to see what they do, because they trade away. So Hunter Renfroe's gone, and he's traded away. Then Andrew McCutchen's a free agent. There's kind of a lot of room in that Milwaukee outfield, and it should be interesting to see what happens with it. They also have, I won't be covering this, it's not one of my points, but they also lost Jace Peterson, that's who it is. So there's going to be a lot of changes in that Milwaukee lineup, so it's going to be interesting to see how Milwaukee looks coming in opening day, whatever moves they have up their sleeve, because especially in the outfield, I don't know exactly how things are going to look. You have Christian Yelich, but from beyond there, I really don't know what Milwaukee's outfield is going to look like going into the next season. But as we talk about the Angels, now that and their pitching depth, and pitching has been their strong point, and they just traded away some relievers. Should be interesting to see how that works out for them, but ultimately it makes room for, I think, their number 5 prospect, Kai Busch. We just have to do a Kai Busch shout out every time we talk about the Angels. Super big fans over here. So just remember, Kai Busch isn't, I don't know, he's going to be AAA this season. He could come up halfway through the season. I don't think they're going to give him a chance to make opening day roster, but big dog, keep an eye out on him. Big, hard-throwing left-hander. It's going to be a big dog out there. So moving on to the next deal. The other big first baseman on the market, Jose Abreu. 3 years, $58.5 million to the Astros, who Yuri Gurriel, their previous first baseman, just became a free agent. Trey Mancini is a free agent. So they had an opening there, and I didn't know if Astros were going to really be able to go out and make their team that much better this offseason, but Jose Abreu, he's a great addition to the lineup. You're going to get average. You could get power. You didn't have that much power last season, but with it being Jose Abreu, I think if you give him protection in the lineup, you are going to get power. And what better protection can he have than Yordan Alvarez? So really, it's going to be exciting to see what Jose Abreu can do over there. And really, I know he had the MVP in 2020, but I feel like overall Jose Abreu is a pretty underrated player, and he could really do some big things for the Astros. So it's interesting to see how they have been able to really upgrade their lineup. Yuri Gurriel was great for a few seasons, batting champ, but you're adding a former MVP at first base. It should be an upgrade there for the Astros. It should be exciting to see how Jose Abreu plays for them over the next 3 years. Rays signed Zach Eflin. The Rays have been trading away a lot of pitching over the past few years. They traded away Joe Ryan. They traded away Matthew Liberatore. And, they're starting to run a little thin on pitching. So the Rays have been taking opportunities to pick up pitching. And latest signing of Zach Eflin away from the Phillies. So he's going to be a pretty good pitcher. He was closer for him during the postseason, which was, surprising to see him come out and, perform that well there after being starting for him for most of the season. So Zach Eflin, I think, is a pretty good signing for the Rays. I think they've let go of Corey Kluber, so it's just kind of a vet guy to come in and take that role. Should be good for him. I really like some of the pitching prospects the Rays have coming up. So even though they traded away some, I think their number 1 overall prospect right now, Taj Bradley, he's kind of a big dog. I'm excited to see if he makes opening day roster for the Rays. He's a big guy to watch. Moving on to another big trade, it's the Brewers again. Brewers made a deal with the Mariners. Two teams that are pretty active in the trading market to start off the offseason. So the Brewers traded Colton Wong, which some people are expecting that, kind of a bigger contract, kind of getting down to the end of it. But they traded with the Mariners for Jesse Winker and Abraham Toro, which I think makes a lot of sense for both teams. Mariners, they really wanted someone who could come and play second base. It was their position that needed the biggest upgrade, worst performing position last year. And Colton Wong, although his defense has started to struggle as he's aged, he's a former Gold Glover. We'll see if he can get back in the form, but he's going to provide you more consistent offense than the Mariners have been getting for the past little bit. So Colton Wong, great pickup. I don't know about paying Jesse Winker and Toro, but it works out great for the Brewers, who have just traded away Hunter Renfroe. Jesse Winker can come in and take that spot, so you're going to have Yelich and Winker in the outfield. Great. And like I mentioned, Jace Peterson, he's left. He's signed somewhere else. Abraham Toro can come in and take that spot. We like what we've seen from Toro. So really, I think this trade made both teams better, and I'm Really interested to see. I think the Brewers might have won out on this one. Colton Wong, I think, is a little risky with his defense starting to go down a bit, but you're going to get decent offense out of him. We'll see if he has a rebound, but Winker's kind of struggled too, so you can kind of see both kind of struggled, but it seems like a pretty good trade overall. I think both teams benefit out of it, and, kind of, adds more of that change, more of that shift to the Brewers lineup, but I think with those two additions, their lineup is starting to look better than I was expecting that it would have been if they, I think it's step towards being better than last year, and I'm looking at that, and the Brewers can really get their offense put together, and they can actually support the pitchers with run support. They're going to be a really, really hard team to beat. Now we're starting to get into some of the big signings. So Jacob deGrom's up. Texas Rangers signed Jacob deGrom. They've spent big last offseason. They go and spend big this offseason. They have deGrom in for 5 years, $185 million. That's a big addition for the Texas Rangers. They are putting so much money into the free agent market, seeing what they can pull right out of it. They needed pitching help, and this is a great addition to that rotation. They still don't have a complete team, though. They still have a lot of spots that need to be filled that I don't know if they're going to be able to do this offseason. Even after signing Jacob deGrom, Fangraphs only had the Rangers at 80 wins, 82 losses. So even with deGrom, they're barely below 500 is what Fangraphs is predicting, showing that they have quite a few places they still need to fill to really have a strong competitive team. But they're moving in the right direction. They're making deals. They signed Jacob deGrom, which is a huge deal. It'll be crazy to see that man dealing for the Rangers next season. Hopefully he can stay healthy, because it's great watching Jacob deGrom. I'm just really hoping that he stays healthy. But how do the Mets react? How do the Mets react now that they've lost deGrom in free agency? Why not sign the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner? That's exactly what they did. They signed Justin Verlander on a monster deal, basically matching the deal that they gave to Mad Max, which is an insane amount of money. But on that note of Mad Max, Justin Verlander and Mad Max are back on the same team. They both started together over on the Detroit Tigers, and now they're back together, both old men, both still dealing over with the New York Mets. It should be fun to see those two together, though they're both getting old and they both won't be there too long. So it's not a good long-term solution for the Mets, but they should be able to deal the next, 1 to 2 seasons with Mad Max and JV both together. And Mets are in a win-now mode, so kind of makes sense for them, even though they're spending a lot of money. Mad Max, Justin Verlander, that's the annual value of just those two contracts together is insane. Nevertheless, speaking of a little bit younger of a player who signed a longer term deal, let's say 11 years, how about Trey Turner, who the Phillies signed on an 11-year, $300 million contract. And, speaking of reunions, Trey Turner and Bryce Harper are back together after both playing together on the Nationals to start their career. Although, Trey Turner wasn't drafted by the Nationals. He was really originally drafted by the Phillies, but ended up getting over there through trades. But we knew Trey Turner wanted to go East Coast at the end of the offseason. He said he loved LA, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he wanted to play for an East Coast team closer to his hometown, closer to where his family lives. And that's what he did. He go out and sign a monster deal with the Phillies, who, let's take it right here, they have improved. That improves their team. They lost Zach Eflin, but they just added Trey Turner. That's a massive piece to the lineup. And although Bryce Harper is going to be injured for most of the season next year, once Harper's back in the lineup with Trey Turner, Schwarber, Castellanos, it's going to be a monster lineup. That monster lineup that you saw in the postseason last year, it could be back with Trey Turner. That's going to be something to watch going into the next postseason. Is the NL East is going to be ultra competitive, as we'll see more NL East deals going on through what's happened so far in the offseason. Let's go over to the AL Central to see what the Guardians have done to improve the team. And Josh Bell. Josh Bell signed a big deal with the Guardians. Wasn't a giant deal. He didn't get probably what he was expecting going into it with. He kind of struggled at the end there playing for San Diego after the trade from Washington, but switching to first baseman, he kind of fits really well into that Guardians offense. They really need a veteran bat. They're a really young team, and first base isn't completely figured out. The other Naylor brother hasn't completely taken over first, so it's a really great spot. Josh Bell's going to be able to go there, produce some runs for him, and it's an upgrade to that young Guardians team that they were competitive last year. It should be great to see what they can do with Josh Bell. I don't know if that completely bridges the gap between where that championship team they're looking for, but it's a step in the right direction for the Guardians. And speaking of the Rangers, who have been spending big over the last few seasons, this isn't as big of a deal, but it is an upgrade to their rotation that definitely is in need of more pitching, even after signing Jacob deGrom, and that's Andrew Heaney. Andrew Heaney, coming off a injury-filled season with the Dodgers, is gonna pitch for Texas, and Texas going out and signing two pitchers that both suffered injuries last season doesn't leave you feeling great about the rotation, but if both those guys can be there, can pitch well, can be healthy, that might bring them up to a 500 team. You don't have to be too much over 500 to make the playoffs, but we'll see what they can do. We'll see what they can put together. It's going to be interesting to see how they do with their rotation as after adding the pitching that they've added this offseason. Now to the Chicago Cubs. Their payroll's down. They've traded away everyone. Wilson Contreras is a free agent. So what are the Cubs going to do? The Cubs have money to spend. They have a really young team. They've kind of sorted through what prospects they have. What addition do they need to make to this team to make it a bit more competitive moving forward? Apparently the answer, Cody Bellinger. After having very disappointing last 3 seasons with the Dodgers after his MVP season, he's non-tendered by the Dodgers, goes out and signs a deal, 1-year deal, with the Chicago Cubs as a prove yourself year. It should be interesting. He provides good defense, but really the comparison we want to make here is how much better is he than a player the Cubs just got rid of, Jason Hayward. Offensively, over the past 3 seasons, Jason Hayward has been a better hitter. And they're both elite defenders, so is it really that much of an upgrade from Jason Hayward? That's what Chicago fans are left thinking about. I mean, he's a great trade piece if he goes out and performs well. But if not, you're really not getting a player much better than Jason Hayward was. Who, surprisingly enough, Jason Hayward went out and signed a minor league deal with, I believe, the LA Dodgers. So it's kind of a player swap there, and we'll see what happens. Because really, Jason Hayward has been a better hitter. They have similar defense, so it's really who's going to figure it out. And it should be interesting to see who does and how that deal for Cody Bellinger ends up working out for Chicago. Moving over to the Giants, who are at this time in talks with, at the time of the signing, were in talks with Aaron Judge, between them and the Yankees, to see who would really go through and sign the slugger. It's Aaron Judge's hometown in San Francisco. San Francisco wants him. He's got history of the Yankees. How does that play out? Well, they still needed outfield help after that to pair with Jock Peterson in the outfield, so they went out and signed Mitch Haniger. I think that's a pretty good signing for the Giants. They needed more outfield help. Mitch is going to be able to help them out. It's a pretty good deal overall. We'll see if they can, but they really need another big bat in their lineup. They need another Aaron Judge. They need a big guy. We'll see what they can do a little later on as we go through what's happened during the offseason. Moving back to the Phillies, after signing Trey Turner, I guess they lost Zach Eflin. They have a really good 1-2 punch in their lineup. They have Ranger Suarez in the rotation too. So what's going to happen? We need pitching still. Ty-Jin Walker's coming in. Yeah, not a bad deal for the Phillies. Walker, he's been, last season was a little iffy, but before then had some dominant seasons. If he can put together for the Phillies, he's another great arm to throw some innings on. Phillies should be looking pretty good. Speaking of pitching, we've got kind of 3 more pitching deals in a row. Jameson Taillon goes to Chicago. Not bad, Chicago. Who do they really have pitching-wise? Kind of think about it for a minute. I mean, they had some rookies that did okay, but they really don't have too many guys you think. Chicago doesn't have that great of pitching. So Jameson Taillon, great addition to the rotation, paired with Marcus Stroman. They're starting to put together a decent rotation. They're starting to add some pieces, but I really don't see the Chicago really competing next season. Moving over to a team that will compete, the Mets. Mets are going to compete. They've lost the Grom, added Verlander. I guess, why not add Jose Quintana? He came through, he pitched well with Pittsburgh, got traded to St. Louis, pitched extremely well with St. Louis, started the first wildcard game for St. Louis, and he just pitched very well. He'll be a great addition to the Mets, and really, he's one of the younger guys in the Mets rotation now that they have Scherzer and Verlander together. Even with Quintana, I think he's mid-30s, but he's still one of the younger guys in the rotation. It's a really old rotation. Interesting to see how the Mets will do, but I think Quintana is a solid piece to add for the Mets. And then, more money being spent in the NL East this offseason. But what is the AL East going to do? Well, AL East has, they did sign an arm, and they signed a pretty good arm, but it's a bullpen arm. The Red Sox signed Kenley Jansen, and Kenley, he's excited to be there. He likes the Red Sox. He's a great pitcher. He was up there in leaders and saves last season over with the Braves. Should be great to see what he does for the Red Sox. Red Sox haven't really had a good traditional closer since I think they had Craig Kimbrel back in the day. So it's really great to see the Red Sox kind of shoring up that bullpen. I think it's one of a few moves they made this offseason to really shore up their bullpen. But they really need to figure out what's happening on the field. They have Rafael Devers, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts are both free agents. What's the Red Sox team going to look like next season? They really struggled this season. They have some pitchers that are gone too. Let's see who have it. Nathan Eovaldi's a free agent. Michael Wacha's a free agent. They really need something to pull together. Chris Sale's hurt again. So what's this Red Sox team really going to be? What's the heart of this Red Sox team going to be moving into next season? How are they going to put together a competitive team? Step number 1, bring in a solid closer. We'll see how that works out for them. Now we'll get into one of the big catching news that we're going to talk about. Top catching free agent Wilson Contreras meets a deal. He's got a deal. He was talking with the Astros, but the team that came in gave him a big deal. The St. Louis Cardinals came in, signed Wilson Contreras to a 5-year deal with about $17 million average value. And that's the biggest free agent deal the Cardinals have ever given to a player who hasn't played for their team before. We knew the Cardinals were going to be targeting a star catcher this offseason. We didn't think it was going to be Wilson Contreras with some of the guys on the trade market. But with St. Louis, they weren't willing to. Their asking price for Sean Murphy and Danny Jansen, Alejandro Kirk were a bit too high for the Cardinals, who they have some prospects that they really believe in that they're not willing to trade. And, when the price is the world, your farm system, Cardinals weren't willing to budge for Juan Soto. So why would they be willing to trade some of the same key pieces for a Danny Jansen or a Sean Murphy, who really isn't the type of player that Juan Soto is? So with that in mind, Cardinals aren't going to go out and make a big deal for one of these catchers with the asking prices like they were. So they go out and spend $17 million a year on Wilson Contreras, who's excited to come in, try to fill the shoes of Yachty, and really provide a bat in this lineup that needs protection for Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. The Cardinals still probably need another bat to get in there and protect some. They're hoping for a rebound season from Tyler O'Neill, some better protection from Dylan Carlson, but we'll see what the Cardinals can do to really provide the protection in the middle of the lineup that they need for this year's MVP award winner and third place runner-up to the MVP. So it should be exciting to see what the Cardinals can do with Wilson Contreras and what other moves they have in mind to really shore up their lineup. Part of that move could be a promotion of top prospect Jordan Walker, but we'll see how that works out comes to spring training. And now we get to what everyone wants to know coming into the offseason. Where is Aaron Judge going to go? Is it going to be the Yankees? Is it going to be the Giants? And Yankees and Giants offered him the same contract. Padres actually offered him more money, but where did he end up? He ended up with New York. He signed back with New York. He is the new captain of New York, first since Derek Jeter. He's back. He's back for a long time. And really, he had an offer from the Yankees before the season. He said, no, I'm betting on myself. And how much more $1 million did he make as a result of betting on himself? $146.5 million above the original offer from the Yankees. For Aaron Judge, it really pays to bet on yourself. A lot of people are saying, wow, that's a ton of money. Wow, he's had some injury problems in the past. You may have overpaid for him, but what other choice did the Yankees have? You have a guy who just came in, broke the AL home run record, and fans love him. You can't just let him go. That's a lose. Either way, you're losing. If you sign him and he gets hurt and doesn't produce well, if you let him go, the fans aren't going to be happy. You have to sign him. Yankees kind of just don't have any other choice kind of going into the Aaron Judge situation, which is kind of a similar situation that the Red Sox are in with Xander Bogaerts. You just got rid of Mookie Betts. Are you really going to let Xander Bogaerts walk? Are you really going to keep letting strong pieces to your team fly away? But now we get into a move in the outfield that the Red Sox made. J.D. Martinez just left. Who's going to take that position? Well, let's sign a guy from Japan. Red Sox signed, let's see if I can pronounce this, Masataka Yoshida from Japan. From what I can tell, he's a decent player. We'll see what he can do coming over to the big leagues. Should be a solid guy to come in, take that part that J.D. Drew had. They could still probably go out, reach J.D. Drew back, try to play him. They might in the outfield a little bit, mostly DH. It could be an interesting spot to have him back, but that's a good signing for the Red Sox. I think it was a 5-year deal. Should be interesting to see how he plays. Another rookie to look out for moving in to the 2023 season. Now, speaking of the Red Sox, we said that Xander Bogaerts is kind of a must-sign situation. Guess what? Gut punch to the Sox. Padres sign Xander Bogaerts. Padres have been big spenders. They're continuing the big spend. They offered Aaron Judge the highest deal, but he didn't take it. They wanted to go in. They wanted to make a bang. They signed Xander Bogaerts. The interesting part of this move is what it does to the players they already have. This is going to imply switches. Ha-Sung Kim is probably going to move to second base as a result of this. And Jake Cronenworth is probably going to move over to first base. And what about Fernando Tatis Jr.? Probably to right field. And that means Juan Soto, probably to left field. But I think those rules probably could be reversed. Tatis, you kind of question the arm strength sometimes. So you might see Tatis in left, Soto still in right. Because Soto probably might have a better arm. I don't know. I think he's kind of overrated defensively last season when he was in talks for the Gold Glove over in right. But what this does signal to Padre fans is there's probably not going to be a return of Jurkison Profar this season. Which I'm kind of sad about that. I like Jurkison, but it opens up Jurkison to play for some other teams. He kind of had a resurgent season over with the Padres. Should be interesting to see where he ends up. He played leadoff for him last season, but you can probably say that Jurkison Profar isn't going to be returning. Moving on, we have two big deals coming from the Mets. They signed back Brandon Nimmo on a big deal, so you're going to see more of him in center. And then they went out on the international market and picked up another pitcher. Japanese, great name. Let's try to pronounce it. Kodiya Senga. So Senga, he's a good arm. Should be interesting to see how he does. He's got some great pitches. Scouting report looks pretty decent on him. But it's another piece that they've added to the rotation. JV, Quintana, and Senga. They've added some big pieces to the rotation. They're all older pieces. Hopefully their young talent could come in, take up some slack for them. But the Mets, they're going to have a decent rotation. It's 4 guys that they have in their rotation who can put up quality innings. So look for the Mets to be competitive. More big spending from NL East, and it should be exciting to see how they go. Giants miss out on Aaron Judge, and they need some pitching help. So, Carlos Rendon's a free agent. Giants sign Sean Manaea. Kind of a little disappointing last stint with Padres, but so far a resurgent season for him. At least he'll be able to pick up some innings for the San Francisco Giants. Speaking of needing pitching and picking up someone, the Blue Jays signed Chris Bassett. With the signings the Mets have done, it kind of signaled Chris Bassett would be on the move, and he was to the Blue Jays. Blue Jays, they needed some pitching help. Chris Bassett should help fill the void. Second pitcher they signed this offseason. Should be interesting to see how it goes. And with the Blue Jays, should be interesting to see if they get Nate Pearson a chance to make the rotation here in spring training. He's a pitcher who's up, came up, started a few games for him, got hurt basically all last season, pitching games in the minors. Should be interesting to see if they give Nate Pearson another shot at the big leagues coming up this spring training. Now, with the price is the moon price for Sean Murphy, he actually moved. I think the price kind of fell once the Cardinals were out of the picture. There's a little less competition. But the team that picked him up was kind of the most surprising. It was a 3-way trade with the Braves and the Brewers with the A's for Sean Murphy. Pretty interesting deal. The A's picked up prospects from both teams. I feel like Braves kind of got a really good catcher out of this. They gave up Wilson Contreras, and which was a great catcher for him. Had a really great season, showed some power. But the A's received at the end of this Ruiz, a prospect from the Brewers, Pina, catching prospect, Kyler Mueller, Frankie Tomro, Robert Salas from the Braves. So it's like, you look at it and they received a bunch of prospects, biggest name among them, probably Kyle Mueller, but you really look at it, they really didn't receive that much. There's really not that big of names. And from what they're asking from the Cardinals' perspective, that's a lot lower of an asking price than they were asking of the Cardinals. Anyhow, the Brewers got a prospect from the Braves and Joel Pampos from the A's, so they received some guys, but they also got William Contreras. William Contreras was a big name in the deal, but he ended up at the Brewers. He didn't even go to the A's. The A's' biggest thing is they wanted people who could compete right now and contribute to their team right now. And they just picked up a bunch of prospects. Kyle Mueller, yeah, you can pitch for him now, but they really didn't get big pieces that can produce now. They didn't get William Contreras, the biggest piece moving from the Braves in that deal. They just got, some cheap prospects. So I'm really not excited for the A's. They kind of let Sean Murphy go, and for not that big of a price. But the Brewers added a big piece that should be able to produce for them in their lineup. Another move that the Brewers made that kind of shifted up team dynamics, but really should be interesting to see how things work out for the Brewers. I don't know. I'm liking the moves they're making. I think the Brewers could be a lot more competitive moving into this next season than they were last season. And with their pitching, that could be scary. So now that the second big catching deal is done, kind of the final big catching deal, what happened? Well, we'll talk about another catcher to kind of move on to the last kind of catching thing. Christian Vasquez signed a 3-year deals with the Twins. Twins are looking for a catcher. Christian Vasquez hit the mark. He's put together decent seasons in the past for the Red Sox. Got traded over, played decent for the Astros, came over with a ring. So Vasquez, 3-year deal with the Twins. Not super exciting, but a piece that the Twins were needing to add to their team. Biggest thing, Giants retaliate and sign Carlos Correa to add to the team. They needed a big bat. They wanted to make a big splash in this offseason. And although they might have overpaid for Correa, who signed a massively long deal for a massive amount of money with the Giants, you've got to make a big splash. You haven't been able to do it in the past. You missed out on Judge. You missed out on Harper. You keep missing out on guys. So you got to make a splash somewhere. This is what they do. They still need to put some pieces together to have a really complete team, but that's a step in the right direction. That's the superstar name they can add to their list and be happy about. That's something moving off-season in the right direction, and this is so far what we have in our off-season in review. Big spending in the NL East. We've gone through big deals there. Relatively quiet NL West, expecting a little more bang there. You know, Padres make some big deals. Dodgers have been quiet. Giants went out and make a big deal. But overall, kind of quiet with the rest of the teams. Should be interesting to see if the Dodgers make any moves coming out. AL East, you know, they're making good competitive moves. You know, I'm not sure the Yankees are that much better of a team than they were last season. They come out and just kind of re-signed Rizzo, re-signed Judge. They haven't made really any big deals that make you excited for the Yankees. We'll see what else they can do moving on to really make a competitive team. Should be interesting to see who gets the chance and who makes shortstop coming in out of the offseason and spring training for the Yankees. Something to keep an eye on, and we'll keep going over, you know, what teams are expected to look like coming in, who we think is going to win, more moves from the offseason coming up, and we'll see you next time.